Welcome to SplitSecond. If you want to buy the best sleeves or other magic-related accessories, head down to Dragon Shield using the affiliate link below. This week we receive one of our patrons, Toxicat, also known as Drake. He returns to play with us for supporting the channel for 2 years. Bal is trying out Nymris tempo from Glucose 23 and Twice. Drake brought his own take on bad farm Tymna Ikra Turbo Nauseum by Leptis with some tweaks. David is on his loved color combination, this time trying Snooze's Reach Against the Machine with Silas and Kodama. Finally, Rodrigo is on his loved Raffine, riddles you cannot solve, because you simply can't, due to the stacks overload. Bal is going first and he will get down to 6, finding an Underground River and Prismatic Vista for lands. Mox Diamond and Green Monolith means he can get Nymris out on turn 2, and from there start policing the table with Muddle Mixture and Submerge. He sent Pact of Negation to the bottom. Drake also mulliganed down to 6, finding a Scrubland, Prismatic Vista and Ancient Tomb for lands. Sylvan Library can get him quite a great influx of cards, especially paired with such life gain as Serra Ascendant. Opposition Agent can stack the board and he sent Phyrexian Tower to the bottom. David kept his first 7, which is full of mana. The primer does recommend a turn 2 or 3 Kodama, and he just got that with an Underground Sea, Pluto Delta and Marsh Flats for lands. Jewel Lotus, Talisman of Creativity and Finor Elves will bring out Kodama quite easily. From there, let's see if he finds some outlets, since Phyrexian Metamorph is mostly dependent on his opponents. Finally, Rodrigo was unfortunate to have to mulligan down to 5. Keeping a Bloodstained Mire, Watery Grave and Agadim's Awakening can also serve as a third land drop. Curse Totem can delay fast starts with Dorks, a Springer is some decent protection for Thoracle Winds and he sent Toxtril and Force of Will to the bottom. Ready for the match? Bal starts the game playing an Underground River and casts a Mox Diamond, discarding his Prismatic Vista. He then casts Green Monolith and passes. Drake draws, plays his Scrubland and casts a turn 1 Serra Ascendant. The table groans. David plays a Marsh Flats and cracks it for a bio to cast a Finor Elves. He still casts a Jewel Lotus and passes. Rodrigo feels sad with such great starts from his opponents, as he just plays a Bloodstained Mire and passes. Bal draws into a Demonic Tutor and regrets the land he played on turn 1 as his Submerge is shut off, so he casts the Demonic Tutor and searches for a Gildrake, which he also casts entering play and taking over Drake's Serra Ascendant, mostly hoping not to be the punching bag. Drake plays a Prismatic Vista and cracks it to find a swamp. He then exiles an Elvish Spirit Guide for green mana to help cast his Tymna the Weaver. He then attacks David while he can, before good old Kodama hits play. Tymna then triggers and he pays 1 life to draw a card, ending his turn. David plays an Underground Stadium and casts his commander, Kodama of the East Tree, right away. In the end step, Rodrigo cracks his Mire to find a tapped Godless Shrine, and he gets to his turn. He plays an untapped Watery Grave, paying 2 life, and casts Hushbringer, so some Kodama shenanigans might be shut off for some time. We're back to Bal. He fails to find a land and just passes, so Drake can draw 2 cards from his Tymna. Drake plays an Ancient Tomb and jumps to combat. He attacks Rodrigo with Gildrake, triggering Tymna, paying 1 life to draw a card and just passes fully untapped. David draws, plays an Underground Sea, triggering Kodama and putting a Pluto Delta into play. He then casts his Phyrexian Metamorph. With Hushbringer out, he can steal Tymna for good, with a copied Gildrake, so he copies Tymna instead, and Silas feels betrayed. He still attacks Drake with his Kodama for 6, triggering Tymna and paying 1 life to draw a card. He then cracks his Pluto Delta for a Tropical Island, triggering Kodama and putting a Gaia's Cradle into play. He still casts a Talisman of Creativity and passes. Rodrigo draws, plays an untapped Agadim the Undercrypt, paying 3 life and casts his commander Raffine Scheming Seer. He proceeds to combat and attacks David with Hushbringer, triggering Raffine and Conniving, discarding Hushwing Griff, so Hushbringer gets a +1/+1 counter and he passes the turn. Bal found a land, a Pluto Delta, that he cracks to find an Underground Sea. He then casts a Wishclaw Talisman and passes. Drake's Opposition Agent sits steadily in his hand, and he might just get something soon. He casts a Green Monolith and plays an untapped Temple Garden, paying 2 life, to then cast his other commander, Ikra the Usurper. He then proceeds to combat and attacks David with a Drake, while his 3 shield is down. He gains 3 from Ikra and then pays 1 life to draw a card from Tymna. He passes with 5 in hand. David untaps with 9 mana, but not much to do with it, so he goes to combat and attacks Rodrigo with his Elves and Tymna. Rodrigo blocks the Elves and Tymna triggers, so David pays 1 life to draw a card. He then casts his other commander Silas Ran, now controlling 3 partners in crime. He ends the turn by casting a Felor Stone, and we're back to Rodrigo. He draws and jumps to combat, sending both his flying creatures towards Drake, conniving Raffine for 2. He discards 2 non-lands, so Raffine receives 2 +1/+1 counters, but before blockers, Drake evokes an Endurance, pitching a Sylvan Library, which, due to Hushbringer, doesn't get to be sacrificed upon entering play. He just blocks Raffine, not wanting to kill Hushbringer, taking 2 damage. In Rodrigo's second main phase, he plays a Scrubland and casts a Scheming Fence. Bal tries to talk Rodrigo out of choosing the Wish Claw as he mainly wants to find a deluge and would give the tutor to Rodrigo so he could find another stacks piece to even the board once again. He eventually chooses Drake's Grim Monolith as he wants to have mana most of all. Bal draws but finds no land to cast Deluge, so he casts a Frantic Search right away. He untaps his 2 lands and discards 2. While he didn't find any lands, he found a Mox Opal, and he also casts a Talisman of Dominance ending his turn. Drake draws and goes to combat right away. He sends Endurance and Gilded Drake towards Rodrigo and Ikra towards Bal. No one blocks, Ikra triggers and he gains back 13 life, and then Tymna triggers and he pays 2 to draw 2 cards. He plays his Savannah and enchants it with an Utopia Sprawl, choosing green. He then casts a Ranger Captain of Eos and passes the turn. In the end step still, David casts an Abrupt Decay on Rodrigo's Hushbringer, hoping to slowly make way for his lines of play. He gets to his turn and proceeds to combat right away. That's today's motto: attack and draw cards. Well, not for Bal though. He sends Kodama towards Rodrigo and Silas towards Bal, who mentions right away he's not blocking, and Rodrigo, wanting to be responsible, flashes in a Cathar Commando, so he can block Kodama to deny the feed of 1 card. Tymna triggers and he pays 1 to draw a card. He does some math and fires a Dark Ritual, which resolves. With all this mana, he casts a Peer into the Abyss targeting himself. Rodrigo passes priority and Bal casts his last card in hand, a Swan Song. David doesn't contest, he just threw the clay at the wall and it didn't stick. The Swan token triggers Kodama and he just puts a Windswept Teeth into play with it. He then casts a Spellseeker, which he was holding off fearing Drake's open mana, but in response to it, Drake does flash in his Opposition Agent, making David's nightmare come true. David responds by cracking his Windswept Teeth to find a tapped Breeding Pool, and once the ETB resolves, Drake finds a Vampiric Tutor to have his options open. Rodrigo draws, and what, viewers? He goes to combat, where else? He attacks Drake with Raffine, conniving 1 and discarding a Hopeful Initiate. With Ikra's life gain, commander damage seems the best option at the moment. Rodrigo then uses the Skimming Fence ability from Grim Monolith to cast his Cursed Totem. Quite nombo you might say, but it prevents Drake from cracking his Ranger Captain of Eos at the moment. Bal draws and he can't attack to draw cards, but Drake does run Nauseam, so attacks him now to lower his odds with that Vampiric Tutor available. He passes, and on Drake's upkeep he fires an Assassin's Trophy on Rodrigo's Cursed Totem. This way he's now able to crack his Ranger Captain of Eos to semi-silence his opponents. He now casts David's Vampiric Tutor, but in response to that, Rodrigo flashes in an Haven Mind Sensor, so he can only search for his top 4 cards. He finds a Skullclamp that he puts on top and draws. He goes into combat and sends Ikra towards Rodrigo and everything else towards Bal, who flashes in his commander Nymris, Una's Trickster. He blocks a Gilded Drake and then takes 8, and Drake gains 15 from Ikra. Tymna then triggers and he pays 2 to draw 2 more cards. He now casts the Skullclamp and equips it on the Gilded Drake, and uses his last mana to cast a Culling the Weak, sacrificing it as an additional cost, triggering Skullclamp to draw 2 cards. He didn't find much, so with the last 3 mana floating, he casts a Skimming Symmetry, targeting Bal and David with it. And due to his Opposition Agent and Rodrigo's Haven Mind Sensor, he gets to search both of their top 4 cards. Look at how the stars align. He casts David's Mana Vault and follows it with Bal's Ad Nauseam. Without a single mana left, will he make it? He slowly reveals the cards while mentioning he hasn't made his land drop yet. A Lotus Petal shows up and eventually a Dark Ritual, so Culling Ritual is a possibility. Quite some fast mana he found, and eventually what he wanted, Chain of Smog, making him stop. He now casts a Mox Diamond, discarding an Urza Saga, and follows it with a Crow Mox, imprinting Crozon Wayfarer. He now casts Dark Ritual and follows it with a Cabal Ritual with Threshold. He now casts Culling Ritual, clearing most of the board and generating a whopping 16 mana, 5 of which are black and the rest is green. He now casts Yawgmoth's Will. He recasts Cabal Ritual and then Dark Ritual. He casts Assassin's Trophy on Rodrigo's Haven Mind Sensor, allowing him now to cast a Diabolical Intent, sacrificing Endurance and searching for a Witherbloom Apprentice to his hand, which he now casts and finishes the table with Chain of Smog, targeting himself and choosing to repeat the process, copying it each time, while Witherbloom triggers and drains his opponents. GG. Did you enjoy this pod? We have another game in store, but it will have to wait as we prepare the Brothers War video, that you will be able to watch next week. And we also have a special announcement for you, so don't miss next week's episode. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. Bal's top deck Demonic Tutor made him Terminal Vision on stealing a 6/6 flying threat, which still managed to slow Drake's Tymna draw power as the table deployed blockers. Eventually, everyone had the chance to draw from attacking with Tymna or Raffine, and Bal was screwed on mana, unable to even clear the board with Wishclaw. A clutch Opposition Agent gave Drake access to Vampiric Tutor, which even the Timely Mind Sensor couldn't stop the Godsend Skimming Symmetry. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, TJ Rap, Ajimu, Dragonhousecat, V, RJ, Heated Chill, Pina, Ricardo, Dragonsteak, Katerina, Super Scaldi, Dog, Wicked, Zinan, New Gunsmith, and CJ Wally, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.